All right, all right. Let me see. Oh, what have I uncovered my camera? Uh, Hello, everyone. This is Cassandra Williamson with The Path Forward. It's 6 p.m. Eastern Time, Wednesday, July 30th, 2025. And today, the main topic I would like to focus on is that the left and the right have been the cause for all the division that is rampant in our country these days. And it's been going on for a long time. We come by this honestly, absolutely. But it's getting to the point where neither side can find a way to come together. We've got to find that way so that we can figure out how to get past our differences and find at least some common ground in all of this. That is a tall challenge, no doubt about it, because people have become so entrenched where they are and in the ideas that they have that they are unable to see that the other side is just as valid as this one. And notice I didn't say left, right, liberal, or conservative, Republican, or Democrat, or independent, or communist, or socialist, or whatever else you want to go by. Notice I didn't say that. The problem with all this division in the country is that it is the result of entrenchment on the left and entrenchment on the right. But how do we get around that? Yeah, well, let's just kind of go into what that actually means just a little bit. And Jamie, I'll get you to jump in here in just a second about it. But there's some of the stuff that I know is taking place is that, let's say you have an academic article or a story or a study that you want to publish somewhere. The right has their favorite ones and they think that these are the correct ones, and they pay no attention to anyone on the left who does something that's contrary to it. And you start building up a base of knowledge that just repeats itself on the left side, whether that study is on vaccines. Let's say vaccines over on the right, you got some anti vaxxers out there, and you've got some vaxxers and anti vaxxers on the left. These things are there, but the sides pick and choose which things make sense, and then they build this base on it. They have a foundation down here, and then it just starts, you know, citing each other, citations that just build upon each other. And then you have what you think is a sound foundation, but instead what you have done is you haven't paid a lick of attention to the views from the other side, a different perspective. You haven't opened yourself up for any kind of viewpoint diversity. You have assumed that yours is completely right. But what happens, whether it's right or wrong, is not relevant. The thing is, they were designed from the beginning to exclude the other side from the conversation. And that's what we're seeing, and we've got to stop that. So, how do we work on that? Jamie, what do you think?
Well, I'll tell you, I'm beginning to think that there's a lot of, reason to be a little bit more open-minded. I actually had somebody contact me today about, a comment that I had made about, my employer that I was working for and how badly they treated me. There had a worker there that got killed Sunday,
Oh, no.
and that's not the first one there, and basically this guy is writing an article. He said, I'm writing an article for the World Socialist website investigating the death of the LG worker on Sunday at Howen, including firsthand accounts from fellow employees.
Right.
I'm looking into their history of safety violations, and the incident follows closely on the heels of the recent public hearing regarding the death of Ronald Adams at Stellantis, where similar concerns were raised. So, I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, I really think that I think I'm more on board anymore with not putting all the eggs in one basket. To really look at the candidates that are running, because just because somebody's Democrat or Republican, that's not fulfilling everybody's needs, because everybody is so different. They don't fit into the same mold.
Right. Yeah, that's right. That's a good point. You're exactly right. None of us fit into that same mold. And Alexander Hamilton and Thomas Jefferson, they were the poster children for that kind of division in our country. They fought each other left and right in the local newspapers of the time.
Right.
So much so that Washington had to call them down. They were both cabinet members of his. And he had to call them down. Says, you two are acting like a bunch of kids. Stop. You're creating more division. And then he had to talk. He talked about that very topic, actually, in his farewell address. Washington did. But anyway, so let's part of the issue. Part of the issue is that we've become so entrenched on either side that we're unable to hear another viewpoint, even though all of us, well, some of us, keep talking about hearing the other side, hearing other voices, hearing different ways to look at things or different ways to research things. So we come by this honestly, as I said before. In our research stuff, for instance, I mean, everything that we do over on the left, we don't include anyone who disagrees with us. Or we say we do, but we don't. Okay. It's a superficial disagreement. It's not a really deep disagreement. If you want to bring the country together and you're working towards that finding common ground, then the thing you must do, at least in my opinion, is you've got to bring on board people who do not think like, believe like, look like you. And that applies to the left and to the right, whether that is academia. If you're doing research, you've got to do the same thing. You'll get the same stuff over and over and over again if you don't have other viewpoints coming in there. And you know, you might not have the actual end result that you think you should have, but you will have moved more people together in the direction you want to go because they've had buy-in from the very beginning. You get buy-in from them and participation from them, and not just a seat at the table, but a voice that is heard. If it's a political thing and you're wanting to figure out how to reach more Americans, it would seem to me that the way to do it was, hey, let's talk about some liberals and some conservatives, let's sit them down at the table and find out what interests them and what they want to be talking about. And if there is any kind of way we can come to agreement on some things, it will be difficult. It won't be easy. That's the challenging thing. We are afraid to deal with things head on. We're afraid to take the challenge and run with it. Most people run from a challenge. Me, I kind of run headlong into it.
Yeah, me too.
But you know, that's a lot of what we're dealing with. Is we just need people to be able to have a seat at the table, whether or not they are academics, research scientists. I mean, let's just stick with a research thing. Let's say you're studying, I don't know, gender ideology, which I hate that term ideology after gender because I am not an ideology. I don't know about you, but I am not a freaking ideology. I am just simply me, period. Ideology is anyway. So yeah, as you can see, there are some biases that I have. And the only way to overcome those things is to actually hear other people explain why they think the way they do. And if it's in research, let's say you're studying gender or you're studying gender dysphoria, you need to bring in the researchers who completely disagree with you. Like, for instance, the Cass report lady, or the people at Health and Human Services used that report and made their own up that's almost identical. You need to bring in these people and have a conversation with them, because that way you have an opportunity to bring people together and find consensus. It may not be the best outcome, but at least you've got the first step toward that. And you can always work towards something further later on. But you have to have a broad base of different views involved in the research, involved in the science, involved in the ideological discussions, involved in everything in your organizations. If your organizations are lopsided in one thing, one political direction, guess what you're going to get? You're going to get an ideology that is that lopsided side. No way you can avoid it. So how do you get around that? Well, you've got to be deliberate in bringing people together who don't agree with you. There is a term for this. It's called adversarial collaboration. You bring your adversaries in to the table and let them talk. Actually, there is an old Sun Tzu thing talking about keep your enemies closer and all of that. So keep your friends closer, your enemies closer. Well, don't think of them as enemies though, because these are all fellow Americans. We're talking about fellow Americans. They are deserving of that. They are Americans. They just believe and think differently than you. That doesn't mean we shut them out. If you want to move forward, we got to bring them in. Everybody, they got to bring us in. We got to bring them in. It's not easy. Oh my gosh, you'll have people upset all the way around. I mean, there's going to be people pissed that I just said that in the transgender community, in people doing the research and the science and the medicine in these fields. If we want something that is sustainable over a long period of time that actually can move forward, you've got to hear the other voices who disagree with you. That's sustainability. Otherwise, you'll have what we have now. And what do we have now? Well, let's see. I'm just going to pick on the transgender community. Is that all right, Jamie?
Yeah.
And I'm going to pick on some of our icons in this community. And I love these people. I know them, most of them. I know these people, and their hearts are in the right place. Hello. Their hearts are in the right place, folks. They really do want to do the best. However, what we failed to do at the very beginning is bring other voices in that disagree with us to sit at that table. What we did was we built that table, and we said, we only want people who think like us at this table. And what do we have now? Complete and utter chaos and division in the country. Because
people that won't budge, they won't change their opinion. I mean, that's what it boils down to.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to meet some of these people halfway, to come to a agreement, that you give a little and I give a little, and we'll all be fine.
Yeah, that you're right. We've got to be able to. What's that bad word that everybody hates to throw around these days? Compromise a little bit.
Yeah.
People have got to be able to compromise. And what happens with that is you lay that foundation of bringing other voices in, and you've compromised on this thing. And then a year down the road, you can have another meeting with all these people and you can discuss moving forward, because now you've got buy-in from the original group and it's broad-based ideologically. That's the way forward. That's the way to make these things live long. So back in the trans community, I mean, for the longest time, we've surrounded ourselves, and I've been guilty of this too, by the way. Back when I was involved with a couple of different organizations and helped create a couple of organizations, I've been one who sit out there and said, I spoke up and actually said I would prefer to have a little bit of diversity in thought, ideological diversity, because that's how sustainability is created. But I yielded. And in the position I was in, that's what was required of me because of the role I was playing in those organizations. I get it. I get that. Thank goodness I'm no longer in them. This is a for-profit business. It is not non-profit. Okay? Coffees do help. But anyway, it's like, I know the people who started some of the veteran organizations. I know them well. I consider them to be friends of mine. But they were sincerely wrong in excluding other voices. And that's why we are where we are today. That is exactly why we are where we are today. Because what it is, we built an echo chamber that just became so entrenched with this particular way of thinking about things that it was unable to communicate in even the slightest way with anyone on the other side who disagreed with us. Now, we know we're right, right?
In your mind, you are, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we're right, right? I mean, come on. We
Yeah,
know what we're talking about. But they think they're right too.
yeah.
They have a valid perspective that we shut out. What do you think would come of that? What did anyone think would actually be the result of all of that? Well, I don't think they were thinking that far ahead, but
Well, it's the bickering. I mean, if you had the numbers and everybody just would give a little bit, we would be a stronger group. We would have a stronger voice. So
right,
I think it's going to have to happen. I mean, we're going to have one side kind of give in to the other, and I mean, for you to be misgendered or whatever like that, or me to be misgendered, it doesn't bother me as long as it's not in a way. I'm not calling Jamie, a girl or he, she, her, and you
right,
know, if you make it an issue or you just do it out of respect, disrespect, that's different. But
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
somebody, you talk on the phone or whatever, sir, whatever. Okay, you did it in. Respect. I've actually had somebody, even though I had stuff on my records as, female on there, they said, I changed, the problem that you had. And I said, well, what kind of problem are you talking about? Well, I changed your gender on your account. And I said, well, why'd you do that? I said, who told you could do that? I said, I'm transgender, female. I didn't give you permission to do that. I mean, at the end of it all, I said, I want to speak with your supervisor.
right.
Because that was just plain wrong.
Hmm.
I mean, if you want to slip up and call me, sir or whatever, that's one thing. But just to go and change, I've had people question my identity too. Oh, it says right here that I'm female, but obviously you're not female. Well, how the hell do you know you're not here?
I kind of come at it a slightly different way because I'm not offended by any of those things at all.
Well,
There was
if
a
somebody
time,
changed your record on you, you wouldn't be mad.
yeah, no, yeah, I would be upset with that if they didn't consult me first, absolutely, because I spent a lot of time and money to change
You
all of that
betcha.
stuff.
You
a
betcha.
lot,
Yeah.
a lot of time and resources and commitment and standing before a judge and all this kind of stuff. I
Yeah.
mean, absolutely. But yeah, that part now. But over on different social media platforms, if people are doing things like that, I mean, people have called me a transvestite over there, which I don't think of myself as. That's just an older term.
Right.
People have called me, that is a man. And I've said, well, I do know that my genes are blue, for one thing. But anyway,
Yeah.
but I do know superficially that my genes are XY. I know that. You know how I know that? Well, I do have a son. where do you think that where do you think that Y gene went? It went to my son. So I know I've got the XY genes, okay? I know I've got them. So I said, look, that doesn't bother me in the least. You can do that anytime you want. I just don't have a problem with that. If you feel like you need to do that just to make yourself feel better, go for it. Go for it any day of the week that you want. It doesn't bother me. But we can talk about all kinds of different things. If you want to talk about gender, that's one thing. If you want to talk about sex, that's another. If you want to talk about genetics and epigenetics, that's another thing. I can talk about all those too.
Right.
Anything else?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Anyway, whew. But back to the main point. The main point is we have to find a way to communicate with each other, bring other voices in and be heard. Let them sit at the table, have their voices heard, have their opinions heard, and then work together to overcome the objections that you have of just being at the table. Sometimes that's the hardest part. You're not going. Sometimes many times you'll find people who can't even talk to each other because they're so entrenched in their echo chambers. On the left, you got the same thing. On the right, you got the same thing. I mean, all the sides, all the different sides. And I think there's more than two. It's very Janusian, like four faces. But it really, it boggles my mind to see But we don't have a way around all this. But then
Right.
I look at our history, the history of our nation, and I see where it all came from. But I also know that it was human nature to pick sides and to have different ways of thinking. It's just human nature. I get that. So you have to find deliberate ways to get over the differences and find something common to talk about. That does mean compromise. Absolutely. Well, it's a problem with that theory is that they don't want to listen. They only want to dominate the conversation, demonize whomever is their opponent. Yeah, that Joni, that's right. But there are those that we can reach. Now we have to make the assumption. We have to be willing to say that we may not know all that we need to know on this topic, even on the topic of ourselves. And that's a challenge in this community. We think we are it, period. And that anyone who disagrees with that, it's got to be a knuckle dragging knucklehead. That's how we approach people. And it comes across that way. So we have to find ways to engage with people who at least will entertain the possibility that we're different, but there are some similarities. And Carrie says, I can probably see it up there on the screen. I think it is being shared that way for everybody to see it. I'm two-spirit. Misgendering me doesn't really bother me either, but the only thing that does bother me is to ignorantly call me a drag queen or a cross-dresser, neither of which apply to me as I'm not part of those demographics, and neither am I. I get it. Yes, absolutely. I had a really good experience.
It's just the disrespect. I mean, to somebody that does it, deliberately. I guess that's the part that's kind of the sticking point. I mean, you
Right.
don't have to like what we're doing, but just basically, tolerate us and let us be, and we'll let everybody else be. It's just,
Right.
I
Right.
mean, we all know that right now we feel like we're all walking around with targets on our back. I mean, you got the side, the social media and everything. Like on TV, talking about, I'm gonna save the girls, and it's all about them, and we ain't gonna let the boys play with on the girls' team and beat
Right.
them all up and everything, and the the drag queens reading to the kids, and all this other stuff. I mean, they're just beating something into the ground that's a very small problem if it's a problem at all.
Right. And that's all it takes is one or two doing something like that, and it will draw attention to them for that reason, and they will apply that definition to the entire community
Right,
of trans and transsexual people.
right.
I mean, that's yeah. I mean, that happens all the time. I mean, they've tried over on Twitter where I do a lot of conversations with different people. Very few are supportive. And that's fine. That is totally fine. I get a kick out of it. I'll tell you about a couple of the conversations, but nearly every time, once they find out that one, I have this voice, and no, I tried to tell them, I said, that's Lauren Bacall had this voice too. Now, come on. Most of them don't know who Lauren Bacall is.
Yeah,
But I'll say, look, you're not, this is what I tell people. I said, you are not going to offend me by the words you choose to use to describe me. That's all right, Carrie. We got you. I understand. Believe me. So people are going to do things stupid. They try their best to get under my skin, and I won't let them. But the biggest thing that they don't even seem to get is that many people over there who are trying to get under my skin, guess what? They're using a fake name and some avatar that doesn't make a lick of sense, and they're not revealing themselves. And they're
right.
saying, I'm the one who is hiding. I'm saying, what? No, no, look at your own stuff right here.
Yeah.
Jeez. I get a kick out of it.
Believe me, when I got up at the town hall meeting, I was proud to say who I was, where I lived. It didn't bother
Yeah,
me one bit, So,
absolutely. So, what's the takeaway from all this? What do you think? How do you think we should be moving forward? Let's say, hey, Carrie, do you want to come on and talk? Junior? Well, I don't know. I don't see anybody. Anyway, so what I'm going to do is, Jamie, do you want to close out? I'll make a closing statement from your side, and then I'll close out, and that'll be it for the day. We'll come back tomorrow at noon-ish.
well, I'll just tell everybody that there is hope. I got my passport. It's supposed to be here in the mail. I think Saturday. I think that's what it said on informed delivery. So, even though I thought that the form that I had to sign for the gender marker thing was a little bit, kind of derogatory, I agreed to it and checked it off and, signed it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's all it took, to get the female designation on there. I guess that's not terribly bad,
Right. Right.
I'm optimistic. I really am.
Yeah, that's part of it too, is that we have to make sure that we are optimistic. We're not allowing ourselves to fall into this ditch, become depressed and suicidal or anything like that. We don't want that. We're trying our best to make sure that even though we do push across some serious topics that need to be talked about, we don't want to get so stuck in that we forget that real people, real lives are being impacted by the things that we're doing and saying. And I get that. And I hope from what we've talked about today that the people that I have indirectly talked about, they understand what I'm trying to do is to bring this together. I'm trying to do a George Washington on Jefferson and Hamilton. That's what I'm trying to do. Washington was not successful, just so you know. Those two fall in.
I think we need to take a more unified look, though, at the transgender movement. With the youth. To me, that's something there that in my mind, I think that it ought to be something that somebody that's of age, to be able to do that. That way, if it's a mistake, it's on them. It's not on the parents. I mean, how would you feel if you were the parent, and said, "Geez, mom, geez, dad, why did you let me do this? This was a mistake. I ruined my
Right.
life."
I do know that the people who are going to say that it's all right for that to occur for the children who have been properly diagnosed, who have displayed persistence and consistence, and I think there are 3 different P words that they use to identify someone who is actually a trans child, trans teen, or any of those things. Those 3 things. They've got to be consistent and persistent and insistent. It's got to be that. But I think there are those less than scrupulous therapists and doctors out there who have kind of let that thing slide. Some of them. They haven't adhered to those things as strongly as they should have. But I can tell you that the vast majority, regardless of the numbers that we hear from over on the right, and this is something that we need to have a conversation about, is doing the research that enables us to understand this, but having the voices heard from the right who are opposed to it. So we need to be able to do that. That is a tough thing to do, folks. You sit people down, they're going to want to get up and hit each other in the head. I mean, Anyway, this is 30 minutes, and we've got about there. And Terry, I'd try to send that in a post message to you for you to get on if you'd like. And Junie, I did see where you'd say maybe tomorrow. You said maybe tomorrow, and that's fine too. Anyone can come on. I especially want people who don't agree with me. All of those people watching and have watched and will watch. Come on, I want to have a lively conversation that's respectful of you and of me, and have a conversation around what it's going to take to actually find a way forward to get rid of this divisiveness in our country. We've got to find that method. We've got to find a way to do it. Otherwise, we are headed down a dark, dark, dangerous path. With that, I think I'm ready to call it an evening. So I've got to go pick up some food for the family. They wanted, see, my brother wanted Mexican food. My mom wants something from Tudor Biscuits, and my sister will probably want something from McDonald's.
You better get Ubering.
Well,
then.
I'm just going to go do it myself because I do DoorDash every now and then.
Okay, all right.
And I do Stripe.
Oh.
Or is it Stripe? No. Spark with Walmart. If you need to make, by the way, if anyone needs to actually get a little bit of extra cash and maybe on a bind or anything, or like me, you just need to get out of the house and you want to go do things, there's opportunities left and right. This gig employment kind of stuff, gig work is out there. I mean, you can do DoorDash or Uber, or you can do Spark. I go sparking a lot. But that's the term that I remember. I used to go sparking. All right, y'all.
Well, stay safe out on the roads.
See y'all later. Bye. Bye. Thank you.